Good morning, everyone. A beautiful win at Red River. And of course, we'll discuss that a little bit. We got to hear what Paul thinks about it. But mostly, we're going to talk Kentucky Wildcats. Night game. They've been on a bye, Paul. They like to drag people into the mud. Does that even matter? We'll have to see. But this is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Guys, go over to InsideTexas.com. $1. That's it. $1. That's legal consideration. I think it's about as low as you can go. Join for just $1, guys, and you get access to team news, Paul and Ian's great analysis, Justin and Charlie's recruiting, the whole shebang. We would love to see you over on that message board ASAP. Hey, man, if Brent Venables sits back, this Texas offense, according to me, is not going to be able to execute, and that's a win for Oklahoma. That did not happen, Paul. We actually executed and drove the field. So what are your thoughts on the Red River win?
If I had told you our game plan before the game, you would have sold your tickets in the parking lot.
Me, 1,000. Hey, we're going to go 12 personnel and run it. I'd have been like, loss.
We're going outside zone, 12 personnel, and then we're going to have a short controlled passing game. Be like, oh, cool. Yeah, I think that was a really gratifying, really satisfying win. OU was dominated 20-0 in the second half. OU still hasn't scored a touchdown in 736 days on Texas.
Yeah, it'll be, 1,000 by the time we play again.
Yeah, but we need to put a clock up on the site. Mm-hmm. But, very gratifying, very complete win. Defense was dominant. Only really did a couple of things wrong, maybe, like globally. And then the offense found an identity with outside zone. It's funny because we've tormented OU or Venables for 4 straight years with outside zone as the base of our offense.
I didn't even think about it.
And I thought about it and I instantly dismissed it because I was like, well, we haven't been running a lot of it. We don't know how. Our O-line, can they do that? They're not very coordinated. Also, is Wisner healthy enough? Blah, 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 right? Nope, we ran outside zone again and then just layered the offense off of that. So it's really remarkable. And what's interesting is if you watch the All-22, and we're really excited to share that with you later today. It's going to be coming out. We're going to be taping it right after this segment. It was working from the get-go. Texas was just hurting itself with penalties. When we had penalties, we had them all at once at the very beginning of the game, and then we didn't have any more.
Yeah.
And then also, just a couple little miscues took us off track, took us off what we were trying to do. But it was always there. And then when you had that opening, very composed 14-play, 75-yard drive in the third quarter, you knew something had shifted and that OU was in for a really long second half because it was too methodical and too easy. And you knew the OU offense was not going to get on track. There was no formula. They tried everything. And one thing that I really want you guys to tune in for this deep dive, the All-22 and the deep dive we do later, the physicality difference between Texas and OU was marked, was striking. And we're going to show you some stuff of Texas players just beasting on OU guys. And you really see the difference. And it's a fun contrast when you reflect on all the pregame yapping and their performative weakness is what I'd call it of the OU players before the game. It almost looked orchestrated.
It did.
We're going to go over and show Texas how badass we are. And the Texas players just kind of looked at them with a ranging from like icy stare to sort of eye roll.
Yeah.
Like, great, make sure you sign the waiver up front. Like,
yeah, they start bouncing around. Like I talked about it, but the first clip, you don't see the context of how it starts. The one came out later and they just start bouncing around. And it's kind of this just like at first confusion, like, what are we doing? And then Lance Jackson's not playing that. Lance Jackson goes to the front of the line.
It seemed to wake him up because he had a ridiculously impactful game in about 11 snaps where he did something. He committed some sort of mayhem on a Sooner player on every down. So
Campbell
it'd be fun for us to just do a Lance Jackson All-22, but he'll be featured prominently.
We should do a Lance and a Campbell focus because both of them were did not enjoy that performance early. No. And both of them made those players pay the rest of the game. It was pretty funny, man. Someone asked about, does outside zone work against bigger fronts like Georgia?
Yeah, no, it's not the size of the front. OU's front's not small. It's a question of their disposition and how they align and how they play. The reason that it works against OU and always works against OU is because OU slants a lot and they run a lot of what is called replacement games, meaning you're say a defensive end will be lined up, he's outside the tackle, and then right at the snap, he sprints inside, and then an outside linebacker for OU now has contain, right? And when you do that, it can really fluster offensive linemen. And if you have gap schemes, it's suddenly a big debate of like, well, who has that guy? In zone schemes, you have the guy in your zone. So if there's no one in your zone, you keep moving looking for work. If there's two guys in your zone, you hit one of them and you pass one of them or try to pass one of them off to the guy next to you, right? The key is you always keep moving laterally. And you end up stringing out the defense. And then a guy like Trey Wisner will be going laterally, and then he'll stop and he'll make his cut upfield. And you'll see all those guys wash out. And it really plays well to us because we have good feet at tackle. And guess what, Connor? We now have good feet at left guard.
Yeah, Nick Brooks can move.
We highlight Nick Brooks can move for a big boy, much more athletic. I mean, Connor Stroh, outside zone is a non-starter. You cannot run stretch with Connor Stroh. And we're just more active, and it created a decisiveness in our blocking that had been missing. And I think the movement element plays to our strengths. Now, the downside is Trey Wisner is the only back that's been proven to be able to run this correctly. And if we keep giving him 27 touches in a game, he's going to wear down. And so someone has to step up. James Simon, CJ Baxter somehow has to play like more than 2 games in a row without being hurt. We've got to find guys who are willing to trust that as they make their cut, that offensive line is going to wash out the defenders. Christian Clark would have taken several runs that Wisner had for 9 yards, 7 yards, and he would have tried to turn it into a sweep and gotten -3. So we just have to keep it up. Now, as far as can it work against Georgia, not because of the size of their front. Georgia will stop inside zone schematically. Georgia will not do all the slanting and all the replacement games. They'll just anchor and say, we're attaching ourselves to the guy across from us, and then we're going to have our linebackers who are very good clean up behind. So you've got to have different run game tweaks for each opponent, but outside zone is something that you can fit to different opponents. You just block it in different ways.
And Georgia likes to go 5-man fronts, and that's a killer for zone because you take everyone into a one-on-one. Zone, you ideally want to be able to climb to linebackers and get double teams and things like that. If you go 5-0 across, now it's one-on-one. And it can also be difficult against really light fronts, right? Like Arizona State, right? Like skinnier, smaller, like 295 guys that can kind of just get there and move. Now, theoretically, you can wash them, right? Because they are lighter, but that quick feet helps them. And what's beautiful about outside zone is not everyone has to be correct, right? And so that's why it's brilliant is that you're moving and the running back is moving with the line, and he's not looking for a certain gap to hit. He's reading several gaps, and whatever one happens to open, he'll hit that one. So you don't have to be perfect on outside zone. That's why it's a muddy-looking play a lot of the times. And if your back's smart and can find the hole, that's why it's designed to make it easier to find a hole.
3 things. The muddiness of outside zone is part of its appeal, because if it looks muddy to you as the viewer with a sky cam look, imagine what it looks like to a safety or a linebacker. Like it's hard to find the ball. It's hard to find where that back is going to duck in and cut, right? And you can easily overrun, right? That's the other part is you mentioned that like loading up the front with bodies. Very famous game plan. Before Bill Belichick was a shell of himself, trying to do a money grab at North Carolina and set his son up with a head coaching job with a bunch of Jags and his staff. Bill Belichick used to be a great coach, and a very, very famous game plan was the Patriots running a 6-1 against Sean McVay's Rams, who are outside zone heavy. And he unveiled that defense in that Super Bowl and held the number 1 offense in the NFL to 7 points? Something like that. Something crazy. Less than 10. I remember that. So there are ways to address it, but the ways that you address it will create other things for our offense. One thing you've got to keep in mind while we were running, and this was diabolical, while we're running outside zone, on the backside, we would have a motion wide receiver like DeAndre Moore going against the grain, almost like I'm going to be a jet sweeper, but he's not. He's a lead blocker for Arch Manning on the backside, who's running like quarterback power. And so what that does is it freezes the backside of your defense. Because the way that you stop outside zone is actually, you want to do a good job at the point of attack play side, but it's actually all of your backside defenders pursuing. And as that back cuts back, have you ever seen outside zone runners like get destroyed? It's almost always the guy cuts back and then the pursuit goes boom, and he just gets nailed.
Or the flip side, the pursuit doesn't get there and that back cuts it back for 80. Like that's your biggest plays on outside zone, is being able to cut back.
The cool thing, and the reason I love outside zone and I'm such a Shanahan fanboy, is that because it's a play call where the running back might end up, it's called outside zone. He might end up running the ball over the center. Mm-hmm. Like that's, if he sees it and because he's supposed to cut. And then one of the little rules is if the running back sees sideways pads across his offensive line, he's got to realize that guys are getting washed out. Like, so he's got to cut into the sideways pads. It's very counterintuitive. If he sees pads flat, he needs to keep carrying it out. It almost becomes a sweep.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to get a running back to trust I'm planting my foot and cutting while there's still a wall in front of me. I'm going to get creamed. But wait, as I hit the hole, it all cleared up. What the hell? Like, and you've got to convince your back of that. And it's very hard to do. Some running backs just cannot run outside zone.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people are kind of worried, does it translate? It's not going to translate every game. But there's fronts like A&M, you saw it translate. Clemson, you saw it translate. Like, these aren't rare. Like, Wisner and the offensive line have these games like 2 or 3 times a year where they just look unstoppable. The tricky part is it's not always going to look like that. I don't want to give the impression like outside zone is solved for us and that's we're going to run for 100 every game. No, but it works particularly well in that setting with that defense too. Clearly.
Well, here's my modest proposal. We major in outside zone, duo/inside zone, which is the complement to it, counter gaps, GT counter, whatever you want to call it. And then 4 would be Arch Manning run plays built on the backside on each of those runs. Yeah. If we just do that, we'll have an answer in the run game for most of the fronts that we face. And we can create some specificity and some reps on the same stuff over and over. Instead of having, like, in the run game, I'm an in-and-out menu guy. I'm not a Cheesecake Factory guy. Okay? Yeah. Cheesecake Factory, you can go there and order a Polynesian food, and your friend can have Mexican, and the other guy can have Italian. Like, the menu never ends. It's freaking War and Peace, right? In-N-Out is like, we have burgers and fries.
At affordable prices, by the way.
Yeah, and very good food. Yeah. And friendly employees. But I like an in-and-out menu in the run game. If I want to get like complex and varied, let's do that in the passing game. But run game, I like in-and-out. And I want to make like a really good solid burger and not try to have a diner menu with 500. Never go to a place where you can order like a burger, but you can also get lobster. Like that's not a good sign usually.
Yeah, it's not. But I agree 100%. Like, and we did that, right? Have the 4 runs and let guys get reps. But most importantly, I think you said it, we just looked confident. We had looked trepidatious on every other run scheme. Like we didn't know where we were going or we were unsure of ourselves. That was the first game where I saw that we played aggressive, mean, confident, looked like even if we didn't nail it, we were going somewhere fast. And I thought that was a huge difference. Any quick things on the defense? Good job, defense.
Actually, our pal Sugarcane Daddy has a great super chat, which will allow me to talk about what I want to talk about with the defense.
Did OU piss away their season by rushing mid-tier back? There we go.
Oh, mid-tier.
By the second half, PK knew he couldn't push the ball downfield to save his life.
there's a reason he didn't push the ball down the field, and it was related to coverage. I think Mateer could throw the ball fine, and he did that in pregame. He was zipping it around. And actually, there was a few throws in the game where he had some really good throws inside the hashes where he had to fit it into a window, and he looked fine. The reason he couldn't get it down the field is we blitzed a good bit early and did some interesting stuff. Late in the game, we just played coverage. And I can show you, and we're going to show you, that we had some instances when they went 5 wide, we rushed 3, had Colin Simmons as a spy, and still got pressure. So imagine that. Imagine the layers of coverage behind when we do that. And there's nowhere to throw the ball. And there's an OU personality on Twitter right now showing, if he'd just thrown it here, it's a touchdown. It's literally like, let me explain to you how zone coverage works. When Mateer opens up and his eyes go here and he starts to get ready to throw, our zone rotates to the ball. That's what they're taught to do. So, yeah, you're going to find a guy on the backside 30 yards down the field open, but football doesn't work that way. He can't make the ball magically go appear over there. So, and by the way, if Mateer started to turn back, guess what would happen to the zone? It would shift back. Like, that's why you run zone. You have eyes on the quarterback and you start to move and break based on where he's opening up and showing. So,
but there is not a game in the history of games where I cannot find 4 plays where someone is open at some point. It's just like, of course there were plays where guys were open. The point is they didn't hit that guy.
Well, and it's not just that. The passing game has a construct and there's reads, right? So you can, I love that you in the stands found a guy that was open 3 seconds into the play as the guy's being pressured and about to get hit and he's falling backwards. And you're like, if you throw it 47 yards that way across the field, that guy's open. And it's like, he's open for a reason because we know that he can't get the ball there. So, it always makes me laugh. And I have buddies who are like that. They'll be like, I was at the game. There were guys open everywhere. And it's like
every game, there's that guy.
You're like, relax. But yeah, no, Sugarcane Daddy, I actually thought Mateer, or mid-tier as you call him, had the ability to throw the ball down the field. They can't get down the field. It is a team of slot receivers. They run crossers, which we did very well against, by the way. Mm-hmm. They run some screen game stuff. They don't have – the offense is John Mateer. They don't have an offense. And so it's going to be really tough for them because they can't run the ball. It's their auxiliary players, like the additional blockers, like their offensive line is not very physical, but their tight ends are the worst in the Big 12. SEC. They're the worst in P4 that I've seen this year in terms of physicality or blocking. Their running backs have no interest in blocking. You saw the Jaden Ott play on Anthony Hill.
Yeah. I would have done the same thing, man.
But I mean, the thing is, if you want to run like wide open spread quarterback draw stuff, your tight ends and running backs blocking is really important.
Yeah.
Like that's the +1 that you've got to pick up that guy that makes that go. And we're going to show you why they couldn't. So I specifically curated the clips this week to show you guys why couldn't OU just go 5 wide and beat us that way. I'll show you why. Why couldn't OU just run Mateer? I'll show you why. And then what was the big gap and difference in physicality? And then, of course, we break down the outside zone runs and we explain it. We also show you how Arch on the down low made some badass clutch throws that kept us in this game. He had the most deceptive box score versus how he played that I've seen in some time from a quarterback.
Yeah, every moment was just clutch. It wasn't like it was just when you needed it, he gave it to you type of thing.
There's a reason we went 10 of 17 on third down. Coming into the game, OU was giving up 18% third down conversions.
And we were horrific. Yeah, and we were horrific at getting third downs.
We were a joke.
Yeah, we haven't seen that all season. And that was absolutely awesome. All right, quick thing here before we get to the ad break. How confident are y'all in the O-line moving forward? I don't know what translates. So that's kind of my big thing. Like if they play aggressive and at least like they look so confused the past weeks. If they play like that, we'll be better. Now, Art had a 4.2 ADOT. we bypassed the offensive line for the most part. We still had like 16 or 18 pressures given up. Arch is just really good at avoiding that. The run game was better relative to what the hell we've been seeing, and so, but I wouldn't say it's like, compared to a good offensive line performance, I wouldn't say it was that. So it's relative to what we did, improvement, but also the game plan was clearly like, let's try to neutralize offensive line as much as possible, in my opinion. What do you think, Paul?
Agreed. But I think Nick Brooks is going to give us upside. Let's remember Nick Brooks, 18 years old, true freshman. He spent the entire offseason practicing at tackle.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks ago, we said, hey, freshman, we need you to start at left guard. And here's kind of how you play left guard. And you're going to be playing some future NFL defensive linemen. Good luck. So Nick Brooks is going to get better. I promise you that. There's upside there. The other part that's interesting is we changed up some of our pass pro. I was criticizing the robotic slide protections and some of the dumb pull protections where we're having tight ends pull and pass block a big. That was not really part of our game plan. When we did slide pro, it was paired to the quick game, which is what slide pro was invented for. So we did a lot more zone protection. And although it was far from perfect, Arch knew where he was going to get pressure if pressure came. And that was a huge help to him because it wasn't a big surprise where it would leak. It was like, I know if I get pressure, it will come from here based on the rules. And the only exception to that was Cole Hudson, who, is going to be a liability. But he played a lot harder in this game, which was good.
Yeah. Against a horrible OU, hasn't played anyone good. OU has a good defense. How was he versus Florida? He did well. He was under siege the whole time, and he made a lot of good plays downfield. Yeah. All right. We're going to hit this ad break here, Paul, and then we're going to talk about them Wildcats.
Touchdown! Any gate can be a tailgate.
Wildcats.
Is Wildcat the most frequent mascot?
It's so common that whenever someone is called a Wildcat, I double check to make sure I'm not mixing them up with another team. It's that frequent. So they've been on a bye. It is a night game, and Kentucky plays a heavy tight end, run the ball, play action shot offense, kind of attempts at ball control, and we've seen them drag what they got Ole Miss last year, didn't they? And then they almost got Georgia. This year they had a little bit of a scrap with Ole Miss, and so this is one of those games where it's like, look, they're not very good, but they have this remarkable way because of their play style and how they're built that they like to get you down in the mud a little bit. So I thought Sark was smart to hammer, like, look, do not take that OU high and turn it into thinking that, you're going to just roll over Kentucky. Because if you have that mindset, it could be a pretty nerve-wracking game.
Historically, OU, success or failure, has been a pretty poor predictor of our season outcome.
Yeah, it's not a great barometer.
It's kind of a one-off. It's weird.
Yeah. I don't take a ton from that. Well, you can tell it's weird because our offense did everything they haven't done at all year, even against the G5. So it's like, that's a weird game. There's weird emotion involved and all of that. So yeah, I have a little bit of like, all right, let's wait and see on some of this stuff for offense. All right, let's take a look here. The Kentucky offense is very bad. And what they're good at, they have a super experienced offensive line. Like what is some stat on TV, right? Like third most starts of any team in college football at line.
Yep.
And then they have two really good tight ends, Willie Rodriguez and Josh Caddis. Those guys get their explosives. It's their outside receivers that aren't doing anything because they lose Berrien Brown and Dane Key from last year, who were two really solid outside receivers. They don't have the help outside, so their explosives are coming from interior passes, and then they bring in Kendrick Law from Alabama, if everyone remembers. And he's a speed player, screen guy, that kind of stuff. And then they have Cutter Boley over Calzada the past couple games. We remember him in the second half of last year. Strong arm kid, but he still does a lot of goofy stuff. So their offense is not doing great, but they really like to run it. And for me, this is kind of another Florida test in ideology. And that's what I want to see from the Texas defense. Texas defense has been nails at shutting down the spread, and that's like an OU offense, right? You can't run type of thing. Florida came at us. They had a great back in Baugh. They have a good back in McGowan. And then they don't have the outside receivers like a Dallas Wilson, but they do have some tight ends in that play style. So I do want to see what happens when Texas starts getting pushed back. That's why this game is more interesting for me schematically, even though they don't have the horses of Florida.
So I watched Kentucky's All 22 against a couple of opponents, and I can kind of empty the notebook at whatever you want, or we can stick to like a unit. What do you want to do their offense?
Yeah, let's move offense first. Let's talk them overall, and then like hit your notes when we talk rushing offense, hit your notes when we talk passing offense.
All right, sounds good.
All right, so first thing, they're 81st in the country in points per game. Not great. Fairly slow moving. Their time of possession, which they want to be a ball control team, they're still not really achieving that. 102nd in yards per play, 85th in offensive points per drive, 90th in success rate, so not able to string together drives that well. And then a big factor that they're struggling with is 119th in offensive explosiveness. If you're going to be the heavy run man, you have to hit those play action shots. That's how you win with that style, and they're not able to do that. And then they have weird – watch the South Carolina game. They have all sorts of weird stuff happen to them. They're 98th in havoc rate, 93rd in front seven, so you can get those sacks, you can get those fumbles, but also 95th with DB. So they're throwing interceptions. The receiver and quarterback are off, not on the same page. The offense is just really, really struggling overall for Kentucky. You want to go to rushing? And then you can hit your notes. Okay. So they do rush a lot, as you can see here. They're 38th. But they're not hitting those home runs. 98th in rushing explosivity. Mid-tier in yards per rush, but they are going to run a lot. So what do you think of McGowan and the rushing attack?
McGowan's been good for them. This is his third school. You'll remember he started at OU. Mm-hmm. He went to New Mexico State and did well there. And now he's back. He's averaging 5.5 yards a carry. He's got consistent gainers. He doesn't have the big run usually, but he's got, let's see, 10 of his 80 carries went for 10 plus yards. So that's good.
Yeah.
Dion Dowdell is the backup. He's a big running back from Nebraska. He's kind of like a chain mover guy, short yardage. McGowan and Dowdell are big backs. And then their offensive line is huge. They're two tackles, 6'8", 6'7". The interior offensive line is good. Like, they're nasty, actually. They run gap schemes. They're going to run downhill. You're going to see guys pulling, and you're going to see downhill blocking, and they try to get their shoulders turned and get right at you. And so we need to respond to that a lot better than we did against Florida. That first half shocked our defense, and that can't happen again. And then when we get to their passing game, they have some interesting facets that I think we'll have to explore and we'll have to game plan for, because Cutter Boley does some things really well, and he does some things terribly. And so we'll talk about that.
Yeah, it's highs and lows with him, man. Because like you can see it, right? You're like, give him a couple more years, like, and he was a heralded recruit. Like, people wanted him. But that's going to be a big thing. Someone asked, did McGowan get in trouble with the law? Surprised he didn't go to Georgia instead of Kentucky. Yeah, he did get in trouble with the law, and he got kicked off OU, and then he took like the convict circuit, right, where he's like at this junior college, and then he works his way back up. But that, I think that was in 2020, right? Whenever he got in, so he's been in football for a long time, and he looks like he's older than everybody.
Yes.
Like look at his face. He looks like he's 28.
He looks like Robert Parrish.
And so he's
from the Celtics.
He's
no one knows
he's an back, and it shows. And he's a physical runner as well as being a dynamic athlete. And to Paul's point, they do get downhill. They're 34th in offensive line yards. They're not good at the short yardage though right now, 82nd. And they're all right in stuff rate. But the offensive line is a strength. And even Kentucky overall, Paul said they're big. All of Kentucky is big. Like, even when you look at their defense, that's what's so crazy about the SEC, man. You look at like a bottom tier SEC team, and they're still bigger than any Big 12 team. I had to get my Big 12 shot in. Besides maybe Tech now. Tech's doing their thing. But that's been that's why this matchup is interesting to me, because they play that play style that Florida does in the run game with a good enough back. It's not Ball, but he's good back. All right, pass game, Paul. We're going to get your notes after this. You can see a whole lot of red here, everyone. 128th out of 136 teams in passing success rate. They got to run to move the ball. Now, they are hitting some explosives. They're 64th, a little bit above average. A lot of that is those tight ends, man. I like the tight ends a lot, Rodriguez and Caddis. And then Kendrick Law can provide some explosivity, theoretically, because he's fast behind the line. They just need to connect a lot more with those outside receivers. If they had, Dane Key from last year or something, this team would be much closer to freaking you out. They don't pass a lot, 101st in passing attempts, 107th in yards per pass. They get sacked a lot. They're 98th in sack percentage. And their pass blocking on their line is 92nd in the country in pass blocking efficiency. So you can see the pass game is a definite weakness for Kentucky right now.
Yeah, they struggle a little bit to pass protect outside. So particularly they have a guy named Shiaz Pete, who's their left tackle. He gives up a lot of pressures, and he's kind of slow-footed. And if you get in a pure passing situation, they struggle. So here's what they do. In that Georgia game, I've never seen more screen game in its various forms from a college offense. And they don't just do it from 12 personnel or 13 or whatever. They do it from 5 wide. They'll go 5 wide. They'll go 4 wide. The more they spread, the quicker the ball is going to come out. That's the rule for Kentucky. So if you see them in an empty backfield 5 wide, there's some sort of screen or it's a deep shot on timing. They don't have any other sort of passing offense. And so Boley is actually amazing at screens. So, when you throw like a far lateral screen to the hash, it's actually really hard throw. Like hitting a guy on his upfield shoulder, 25 yards heading up the field, and you're turning and throwing it. He nails them. It's perfect. And their receivers block. Anytime he tries to throw downfield, it's to a spot and it's on timing and it's completely inaccurate. So we're going to have some frustrating moments where their run game and their little screen game is moving the ball on us. The key is you got to just stick with it. You got to tackle. You got to, put a negative play on them. And then eventually they'll punt and lose interest. And, that's the key is you can't let that stuff frustrate you enough that you start jumping their screens. And then maybe they actually hit a lucky explosive down the field.
Track their tight ends, because that's what they do. They keep their tight ends in the core, and then they draw you down, and then the tight end will just slip out from you see it with Sark, right? It's the similar thing. The tight end will slip out from the core, and he's wide open, and they hit it. So always aware of the tight ends in the pass game, because that's how they're going to set you up for their very rare explosives that they do get.
Also, some of these stats include Zach Calzada. It's Boley now. They've decided he's the quarterback. On throws 20 yards plus down the field, Boley is 3 of 21 for 89 yards.
Not too shabby, dude.
Well, kind of shabby.
Well, hey man, it comes out of his hand looking nice. Just don't
pretty.
Pause as soon as it leaves his hand. You're like, looks good.
And if y'all don't remember, he's like 6'5", 220. Like, he looks the part. He's fairly mobile. He can move in the pocket.
Yeah. He's one of those ones you want to keep it. He's kind of a Sawyer Robertson-y to me a couple years ago, where you're like, you see the traits, right? You're like, let him get older, right?
That's an interesting comp.
Yeah. Like, let the offense get more successful. Let him get older. Right now is not his time, but the tools are there, type of thing. 78th in standard downs rate. So not putting themselves in great situations often. But they're pretty decent at moving the ball in standard downs. What the problem is, as soon as you get them into passing downs, they're 132nd in the country. So Kentucky behind the sticks, a.k.a. now they have to pass. They can't do nothing. So everything has to come off being in front of the chains, moving forward, help of the run game. Now we hit something. But as soon as you know they're going to pass, these guys ain't doing too good. Third down percentage, 66th. Average third down distance is what's interesting for them. 16th in the country, Paul. And that's because of moving forward in the run game. So they're able to be in good situations, but it doesn't always matter. Slightly below average in red zone when they do get there. We talked earlier, they give up a lot of sacks. 64th in interceptions thrown per game. 108th in fumbles per game. That includes the quarterback. And then their returning production was something like 47th. So the offense has its struggles. Just don't let that run game get going because that's where you're going to struggle with Kentucky.
Run game, screen game.
Yeah.
And they run. So Bush Hamden is the OC, former Boise State guy. And if you know anything about Boise State, they have a ton of just screen stuff that they do. Running back screens, mostly wide receiver screens, tight end screens, and it's from everything. So they'll run screens from 13 personnel, 3 tight ends on the field. They'll go empty with 5 wides, and they'll have all sorts of screens. Whenever they spread out, think screen. That should be the first thing.
And he worked with Sark at Atlanta, I think. I heard that and did not verify it, but I think he worked under Sark at Atlanta. I'm not sure, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Look, chat, look up and make sure I'm not lying. All right, Paul. Who's someone that will never lie to you?
Oh, not only will he not lie to you, he's going to deliver the truth because this guy is the truth. His name is Gabe Wenzel. You can reach him at 832-557-1095. 832-557-1095. Why, Gabe? Because you're smart. You're an Inside Texas viewer. And smart guys call mortgage brokers because mortgage brokers are going to strike the best possible deal for you. They're going to go out and shop your deal to 60 different lenders and have them compete. They're not going to go to one big bank outlet and say, this is our rate, take it or leave it. Also, I'm about to go on my break, so I'll talk to you in 3 days. No, Gabe is motivated, Gabe is sharp, Gabe is bright, and Gabe works his butt off to kick ass and be the best ally you've ever had in any big financial decision. And that's what buying a house is. 832-557-1095. You need to refi. You need to buy a house. Call Gabe right now or you're a sucker.
I agree. Language, Paul. Language.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to call anybody a sucker.
Okay. Hammond was the QB coach for 1 year in 2017 for Falcons. Sark was the OC then. There you go, guys. Fun fact. Thanks for looking that up. All right. Quick. Let's look over at the mismatches real quick. Do you
feel the media is underplaying the Bush Hamden versus Steve Sarkisian battle?
Yeah, it's such a heavyweight matchup that everyone is anticipating. All right, Texas has the mismatch in yards, defensive yards per play versus offensive yards per play. They have the mismatch in total yards per game. They have the mismatch in offensive explosiveness. They have, and remember, mismatch is a rank differential of 80. And then, Havoc DBs, Texas has a mismatch. Rushing explosivity, Texas has the mismatch. Passing success rate, Texas has a mismatch. Team completion, yards per pass, passing yards per game, all Texas, like slanted heavily towards them. Passing down success rate, early downs EPA, fourth down, all of that. So as you can see here, Kentucky doesn't have a single offensive mismatch against the Texas defense, and the Texas defense has a lot of lopsided ability. Just don't let these guys string together consistent runs, and you should be looking all good here. All right, let's look at Kentucky defense versus the Tejas offense. First thoughts on their defense is they're big. Like I said, like Kentucky's a big team. That's a big factor, but they're not crushing it. But they're not as bad as the offense, that's for sure, right? So we'll look through this here. They're giving up a lot of points per game. 79th, no good. But Texas isn't really known for putting up a ton of points per game. We're 55th, which is getting better by the week generally, which is at least nice. D points per drive, 86th. Success rate, teams are stringing together drives. What they're really bad at is their havocs here. They're 129th in havoc total, 120th in front seven, and 121st in havoc for DB. So not causing a lot of stress on opposing offenses. Any thoughts on the overall defense first, Paul?
Typical Mark Stoops. They play back. They play off. 2 6'3" corners. DJ Waller, who's been out most of the season, will be starting at the other corner across from JQ Hardaway. Both guys are 6'3". Very typical of Kentucky. They've got a type. They like tall, long defensive backs, big linebackers, big defensive linemen, and they just play a lot. They don't. I wouldn't call it base because they do give you different looks, but they play off, and they basically say, "Hey, if you can execute a 14-play, 80-yard drive, you can go score. But if you make a mistake or a penalty or you get greedy, we'll turn you over or you're going to have to punt." And that's kind of how it works. Quarterback run game is wide open, available to them. They won't even sort of play or honor like your quarterback's carry-out threat on the backside. Gunnar Stockton, if he'd wanted to, they could have run for 100 yards with him. The point is, I think Kentucky knows they're Kentucky, and no coordinator wants to hurt his quarterback against Kentucky. Like, how did your quarterback get hurt? Oh, we were running the ball against Kentucky. It was his 14th carry. We were averaging 7 yards a carry. And it's like, yeah, but it's Kentucky. You probably, so I think Kentucky almost plays to that of like, yeah, run your quarterback against us. Do you want to be the guy that hurt your quarterback against Kentucky? So that was interesting to see. And then they sort of like stiffen up in the red zone. They will blitz sometimes, but it's shocking because they don't blitz a lot. So when they do blitz, it's kind of like, oh, whoa, what got into you? And then their corners will play off, and then all of a sudden they'll break on a ball. So, that's the style. It can be very frustrating if you've got a mistake or penalty-ridden offense. So are we taking something from OU and building on that, and we're just going to go methodically drive up and down the field? Or are we going to go back to, UTEP, Texas, where, a team just showing mild resistance and saying, don't make mistakes, we take ourselves off the field? So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, because before OU, I would have said, look, this is a team that makes you execute up and down the field, and Texas can't do that. And they hadn't, but they did versus OU. So what do we take the 5 other data points? Did we take the one? We got to find out. That's why the rest of the season matters here after. But to see that they can do it is great, but also could be even more frustrating if they go back to being weird. This is their rushing defense here. Defensive rushing success rate, not bad, 55th. And they play hard. I didn't feel like the interior line and stuff. I watched Georgia and South Carolina. So the interior, they don't have, who did they have last year that was that baller? Walker?
The big guy?
Yeah, was it Walker? I can't remember, but
yeah,
they didn't have that guy. But rushing explosivity 91st, so you can hit shots on them. So, hey, Trey, you had a really good explosive game and broke tackles and all of that. Let's see. Let's do it again. Let's do it week in and week out kind of thing. Opponent yards per rush, still pretty good at 46. So run defense is not a gimme against them, a gimme, but you need to be able to have good defensive rushing explosivity. Now, keep in mind, we had a good game versus OU. We're still 110th in the country in defensive rushing explosivity. But it's better. We were like 126, so jumped like 16 spots in that OU game. Any thoughts there, Paul?
Trending up.
Trending up. That's all you can ask for, man.
Yeah, so when I say OU or Kentucky plays off or, soft zone, that doesn't mean the players are soft.
Right.
They tackle and they hit, they'll pursue, they try hard. It's just their philosophy. So, you've got to exploit it.
Yeah, I like their interior. All right. And then their defensive line yards are good, right? 51st in defensive line yards, selecting for that. And they're good in rushing power success rate on short yardage. And then they're a little bit below average on stuff rate. So they're big and they are physical. And that's just a sign of the SEC still kind of always surprises me with that. I still haven't gotten used to that. All right, pass game, defensive pass game, 100th in passing success rate. So to Paul's point, right, playing off. So you can move the ball consistently against this team. It's just, can you execute, not shoot yourself in the foot, that kind of thing. Still not great at explosivity either. You got to see there. They are pretty good at completion percentage, which is a little interesting. So 116th in opponent yards per pass. They're 99th in sack rate, so they're not getting to the quarterback. And then this is what we got to see on the Texas side. Texas offense, O-line pass blocking efficiency is still 118th in the country, guys. So that's what I mean by like OU. We felt like, I would hear this kind of like common Twitter fan of like, well, that's solved. It's like, no, we didn't. We avoided the offensive line altogether, and we still gave up 16 pressures, throwing at a 4.2 ADOT. Like we still can't pass block, guys. It was just, that was more of a coaching game from Sark. So this number is still bad, even with the OU game in our O-line pass blocking efficiency. Yeah, and OU had 12 tackles for loss. So it was kind of a mirage on why the offensive line looked better, even though Nick Brooks has to be the starter going forward. It's still we're still not awesome there. Their efficiencies aren't bad, Paul. 37th in DFEI. So that's good.
They're not hanging around there, that ranking, for like 3 straight years.
Yeah. This is not a push. This is why this game is like, they're like, their record's bad, but still this is like, it's relative. This is still a good enough task for the Texas offense that they're going to have to face. Standard downs rate, a little bit below average. Third down is bad, which is good. If Texas can continue that 10 and 17, this is what's really been cool. Third down has creeped up from like 110th to like 64th. Kind of like, this is where, I don't know if Texas can continue, like, get these numbers like much higher than this, but this is about the gap. I thought if things went well, you could go from really bad to like slightly below average or average. And that's kind of where I'm excited to see that has happened on a lot of these numbers. I don't know how much farther that can get pushed, but we'll see. They're giving a lot of distance on third down, which makes sense, right? They're not good at third down completion because they're giving teams kind of short third downs. Can Texas take advantage of that? That's a big thing. 71st in red zone, a little bit below average. 97th in sacks per game. 21st in interceptions per game at 1.2. 97th in fumbles per game. 105th in tackles for loss. So don't throw an interception. Where do you think most of those interceptions come from, Paul? The breaking on the ball at the last second, or like changing tendency?
Yeah, they lull you off, break on the ball. And what happens is when they're playing off, you're going to have your receiver run a stop route for 7 yards in front of them, and they tackle him. And then you go, can we go to 9? And then you throw it for 9, and they tackle him. And then you try to throw it for 11, and the 6'3" corner puts his long arm out there and bats it or hits it in the air or grabs it and goes the other way. So
be wary. How do y'all feel we approach the portal for O-line next season with Brooks seemingly poised for a breakout?
We still have to hit the portal. You guys need to all pull for every job opening possible. So what's happening right now with coaches getting fired is great news for Texas, because it's not just the current open jobs or jobs that will be open. It's the other openings that those jobs will create. There's going to be a daisy chain. Mm-hmm. And what we want to do is have as many portal options as possible in the O-line. We still have to remake the room, and we still have to remake our running back room. So nothing has changed in that regard. Like, we're not fixed. We have terrible depth. So thank God Trevor Gooseby returned to that game against OU, because we would have been in a mess. So we've got to bring in multiple guys on the O-line, and we've got to reinvigorate and refurbish that whole room. And if there are people still resistant to that, then those people need to hit the road.
Yeah. Is Sark genius for his game plan working against OU or lucky? He's not lucky, because that game plan has worked every year.
I mean, it's literally what we just said. It's the same game plan for 4 years running. He started with outside zone as the base of the offense, and then he built out from there. And there's nothing lucky about anything he did. He completely outcoached OU.
Well, and it was confident. You know, because like he came out in that 12 personnel running the ball, throwing outside screens, and I was like, we're done for. Like this it's over, right? And then he's doing it in the first quarter, and then you start to see how dedicated he actually is, right? And like you're in the second quarter, and now it's like, okay, he's playing this for the fourth quarter. So he knows it works against that team. I'm shocked BV like still hasn't realized that, or maybe they just don't. That's just a weakness of their system, and there's no fix there. But it was just a confident game plan that he executed well, and it was a very sober game plan. Like he was like, "Look, man, like this offensive line, we're not going to hold the ball forever." Whenever we took the most clear play action shot in the history of clear play action shots, our Mason Thomas sacked Arch. Like that was the one time where we were like, we lined up, and I was like, "Here comes a shot," right? And you got sacked, you know, and still gave up 16 pressure. So it was just Sark kind of being like, look, I got to figure this out. Luckily, we're going to keep it short. The shocking part is we did execute. That's the answer there, but I didn't know if we were going to be able to execute. So, no, I don't think it was genius. I think he knew that, and I don't think it was lucky either. I am surprised that BB still hasn't, like, realized that is going to occur, but I get it.
Have you ever seen Brent Venables sit for an interview?
I don't know if I've actually ever watched, like, I've watched press conferences or like clips, but I don't know if, like, you know, he's on ESPN talking. I don't know.
So if you ask him, so left guard looks like the young freshman that came in, sprained his knee. How do you feel about depth there? 19 minutes later, he's still talking, and he's named like 47 guys on the roster, and he's talked about his knees always bouncing. He's always fidgeting. He can't help but screw with the D line and the linebackers and try to like make havoc happen. And so you're like, well, how does Sark keep hitting him with outside zone and he's not adjusting? Because it is nature. Like Brent Venables is hyper.
He's intense, yeah.
And he wants to like make stuff happen. And it usually works out really well. He's really good at it. But there's certain things that Sark has dialed into that really torment him. And he's not able to overcome his natural disposition to deal with it. And the other part of this that's, I think, being underplayed is OU. Brent Venables knows his personnel as well as anyone. And he does not trust his secondary.
Yeah.
OU never put 8 in the box. Oh, you know, that people have a reputation. People think Venables is some, you know, maniac, like 9 in the box. We're going to stop the run. That's not
calculated. Yeah.
He's much more calculating, and he kept safeties back, and he was like, I am not letting you test my corners because I saw what Auburn did, and I know that Arch Manning is a better player than Jackson Arnold, right? So, yeah, he has restless coordinator syndrome. That's exactly right.
Yeah. All right, we'll look
RCS.
And we'll get to your question here in a second, Sugarcane Daddy. All right, so let's look at overall team stuff. They're 51st in penalties per game, so they're not shooting themselves in the foot. Texas, 118th in penalties per game. Man, that first couple drives, I was like, oh, no. And then they just no more penalties. They're bad in luck rating. They're 81st. Texas is also bad in luck rating. So who's the unluckiest of the unluckiest is going to be an interesting thing. This is a huge difference that has allowed Texas, even through its woes, to remain somewhat stable. They're 90th in turnover margin per game. Texas is 10th. And that's been huge for us as well. So doing really good in our turnover margin. They are turning the ball over too much. Kentucky, like a true kind of ball control, play defense kind of team, they're 8th in field position. Texas is 2nd. That's also been another major factor why you haven't seen the floor fall out from this offense at times. Team talent rating, still 28th in the country. Texas, number one. Huge. And then their special teams are also really good. They're 5th in the country. Texas is 22nd. And what's interesting is today they've played the hardest schedule in college football at number 1. Texas is number 8.
They've played the hardest schedule in college football?
Yes.
No, they have. All your numbers are made up. This is all stupid. We just waited 50 minutes.
I think Georgia and Ole Miss is doing a lot of heavy lifting for them right there.
Yeah, I don't buy Ole Miss. or I mean, this is not a classic Georgia team either. But I guess that's fair. They did play those two teams.
And then they're about to play.
Is Toledo carrying a lot of weight?
Toledo, Eastern Michigan.
They just lost to Bowling Green, so I don't know. I don't know. This makes everything that you've shown me debatable, questionable.
So Texas is at 8th in schedule difficulty, and of course that's legitimate, right? Because we got Ohio State, we got OU, and Florida. Florida turned around and lost to A&M, which is not shocking, but also A&M is a good team. But so this is look, don't get caught by Kentucky. Don't let them drag you into a road game at night. Don't be on that OU high.
Well, they already dragged us into a road game at night.
Well, that's part one of the plan is already.
We have no control over that. Actually,
their part. See, it's already working.
Used to play the game. Do not travel to Lexington at night.
Yeah, I would say no way.
If it had been a morning game in Duluth, Minnesota, we might play them.
They would be like, look, that's exactly where they want us. We aren't going there. But they've also been on a bye. They've been on a bye too, right?
Connor's hitting every platitude to close out the show.
Look, you just got to go out and play hard. And that's a big factor.
Hey, right? We should wear blue collars when we fly up.
They're cooked. You're getting fired when you start doing that. We're making fun of Moore at Michigan in his press conference. He's wearing like a Carhartt looking thing, and he said he's like, we're going back to blue collar. That's why I'm wearing, and he's wearing it over like his coaching gear. And once you start having to wear outfits to convince your teams to be tough, I mean, you're getting fired.
You know what, Connor? This is why you're a negative Eeyore, and you're always like.
I do prefer I like Eeyore. If I'm talking my Winnie and the Pooh stuff, I do like Eeyore.
Sharon Moore is sending a powerful symbolic message to his team with the blue collar.
I know, literally.
Do you not understand what he's doing?
Yeah, you're right. The depth of that is powerful.
I mean, I don't know, man. I just think that you don't understand what's happening, and symbolism is lost on you as a film guy.
Yeah, we don't study that at all.
You don't study that at all.
Yeah, we are very literal.
All right, we got a super chat from our pal Sugarcane Daddy. Not the problem.
We sure do. Paul, who do you think takes the Penn State job? Any other coaching job openings you find interesting?
I think they're going to talk to the two Matts. What's funny is the guy that they hire will not have a better overall resume than the guy they just fired.
Yeah, I know.
So, but I also understand why they fired Franklin. They had to get rid of him, right? First of all, stop giving these 10-year contracts to coaches, idiot ADs. God bless. Like, get out of here with that stupidity. But they had to get rid of him. I get it. They're going to go talk to Matt Rule. They're going to talk to Matt Campbell. If Matt Campbell is just eternally married to Iowa State, we're going to find out with this hire, right? And when he says no or whatever, you got to go to Matt Rule because he does have a history with Penn State. Go look up his record against top 25 opponents. It's not going to be super encouraging for Penn State people trying to look for the.
They just act like these elite coaches grow on trees and you can just go find one. There's like 3 and they're all working.
Yes. And the other option would be you go to, Manny Diaz is being seriously considered, right?
Yeah.
The other option is you go to the NFL, which can be really scary because they fundamentally don't understand the college job. And Bill Belichick proved that. He brought in a bunch of Jags. Michael Lombardi is the worst GM in college football. He has no clue what he's doing. He was always hiding out in the NFL. And they actually gave him a job, go acquire a bunch of talent in the portal, and he blew it. So these NFL coaches don't always know how to adapt to the college game, even as incredibly competitive and as sophisticated as the NFL is, right? Like you're playing a peer every week. There's no, we're going to beat this team 48-3. Like that's not a thing in the NFL. But those guys don't adapt, a lot of them. So they got to go with a college coach, and they're going to hire a college coach with a less impressive lifetime resume than the guy they just fired. So it's crazy. By the way, Texas did that, right?
Yeah.
Sark wasn't setting the world on fire. We hired traits, though, right?
And that's what you have to do. It doesn't mean you're going to go get Kirby Smart. You just have to make a good hire. But the thing with the NFL coaches, when they're coming down from the NFL, have you ever watched like the head coaches in the draft room with the front office?
Yeah.
The most the coaches do is like, I would like a left tackle, and they're either like yes or no. Like, the coaches, like, they're not involved in that work. Like, they are game planners, and the athletes are professional and get paid more than them. It's a different world when you're having to do the recruiting, which NFL coaches hate. Most coaches, frankly, hate. And then you have to actually like really watch your front office and have actual authority over your front office. It's a different world, man. Like the NFL job, it's harder in competition, but in a lot of ways it's easier for what you have to do day to day. College head coaches have their whole kingdom, and if you want to be a dictator, it's perfect. But the amount of workload is insanely different from a college coach to an NFL coach. Like it's way easier day to day being an NFL coach.
It used to be the exact opposite.
Yep. And now it's totally flipped. And so it's like, I mean, that's what's scary about college football is that you're making the NFL already more enticing than it is because the stress levels of a head coach. So that's a big thing. I sent Paul the Matt Rule interview. And if you watch those like corny, like pseudoscience criminal investigation YouTube channels, they're always talking about like incongruent statements. And all that means is like if you're saying something in the affirmative, like I like cats, but your body language is not congruent, meaning that you're saying I like cats, but your head is subconsciously saying no, that would be considered incongruent and maybe a possibility that there's a lie being told or there's more to the story. If you watch Matt Rule talk at the end of that press conference, they ask him point blank. He names like, I love that school, alma mater, all of this stuff. And then at the end, he's like, I love it at Nebraska. I love these players. And he's saying like all of these affirmatives, but subconsciously shaking his head no. And that's where I was like, well, that's an interesting data point right there.
I trust Connor's stats.
Yeah. That's
the like second part of Sugarcane Daddy's question. What other job openings do you find interesting? Florida's going to come open. That's the best job that will be open. I think that's actually weirdly underrated now because they've had a bad stretch. Florida's a great job. You could win the national title there, right? I mean, that's to me, that's what the job allows. And you're in Florida. Like you're in Florida. You've got a really successful school that dedicates resources to winning. And you're right next to Georgia, which is a great place to be as well. And you now have an SEC where you can recruit Texas. So,
well, you can get we could get Florida, Penn State, Auburn. Who else big time could open up?
Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State is opened up. Oklahoma, if it goes off the rails.
Not yet.
Well, they could switch their defensive coordinator maybe.
I think they keep Venables because he's the perfect fall guy. Because they've convinced their fans that Brent Venables is the head coach of OU football.
Yeah.
And he's the defensive coordinator and motivation guy.
Yep.
Like, it's insane. You read like Sooner sites and they're like, I don't like that when they ask Brent Venables a question about the offense, he defers to the offensive coaches. I'm like, he's the defensive coordinator of your team. Have you not paid attention to anything that's happened in the last year?
Yep.
It's insane.
They also thought John Mateer was secret Baker Mayfield. And, and they figured that out real quick. Guess what, guys? Go to InsideTexas.com. You can join for $1 right now. $1? Yes, $1. Recruiting news, team news, analysis. Also, guys, it's a message board, right? So you can comment. There's and it's not one of those dead message boards, right? There's hundreds of comments, all of that kind of stuff. It's really brutal when you go to some sites just around college football and the guy posts and there's like 2 comments on everything. It's a very lively board. People like to interact. It's a lot of fun. Chat, thank you guys. We got to go shoot this here film study, which will come out later today. And I know you guys like those. So we're going to cover the OU Texas game. Paul and Ian are going to give you guys great insights. Everyone have a wonderful day. And this was brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Farewell.